I'm Randa Abdel Fattah.
And this is our podcast, Two Pals and a Pod, which we started because we are so done with a world that insists on our silence.
The best part is we get to highlight the voices of people who we think the world needs to hear. Each episode, we sit down with thinkers, artists, advocates, and organisers who refuse to be polite in the face of genocide.
This week, we're interviewing Noor Azizah, a Rohingya refugee who fled genocide in Myanmar at the age of 8 and has transformed her early experiences of statelessness and hardship into a powerful advocacy career. Now the co-executive director of the Rohingya Maìyafuìnor collaborative network, she champions Rohingya women's rights, education, and protection from gender-based violence. With degrees in education and peace and conflict studies from the University of Sydney, she has been recognized with major honors, including the New South Wales Young Woman of the Year 2024, Global Citizen Youth Leader 2024, and finalist for New South Wales Young Australian of the Year 2025. Noor has spoken at the Global Refugee Forum, advised the UNHCR and the Australian government, and collaborated with leaders such as Kate Blanchett, Gillian Triggs, and Filippo Grandi. Alongside her advocacy, she works as an English as a second dialect specialist teacher and refugee consultant, embodying resilience and dedication to the rights and dignity of Rohingya women. Welcome, Noor.
Thank you so much for having me. That was a really long bio. I'm so sorry.
No, I mean, there's a lot more there that you, mashallah, have managed to accomplish in your young years, and we wanted to do it justice.
That's too kind. Thank you so much.
Noor, we often like to start by asking our guests a question about their origin story. And we do this because, we live on stolen land. We're beneficiaries of settlement, but we're also victim survivors of Western imperialism and racial capitalism. So we start each episode by acknowledging our positionality up front, and we ask our guests, settlers of color like us often, not just for their asl, their roots, but also on whose sovereign unceded land they live on, they live, love, fight, and protest on. Can you share your origin story with us, the unceded country you were born on, raised in, and again, which country you come from?
So I currently live on stolen Gadigal land, and I thank the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation for allowing my family, my community to resettle on their sacred land. But we know that we are only free when the First Nations people are free. So we'll continue to fight for the freedom of our First Nations people and remain grateful for everything they've given us to start a brand new life. But I was born in Rakhine State, so in our language it's Arakan State. But because we are decolonizing, I'm going to refer to it as Arakan. But when Myanmar colonized, they named it Rakhine State. So people get confused when I say Arakan and Rakhine, so I'll say Arakan. So in the 90s, there were waves of violence against the Rohingya. The military came to our village. They were doing all sorts of mass atrocities you can think of. Burning villages to the ground, raping women and children, removing our citizenship in 1982, or direct violence, indirect violence, cultural violence. So my parents decided they had to flee. They carried 5 of their children across Southeast Asia, carrying me as a baby. And we didn't carry anything on us. We didn't take food, we didn't take water, we didn't take our papers that we didn't have. We fled because we knew that being on the run was much more safer than being in our ancestral homeland. So we made that extremely perilous journey across Southeast Asia, which many Rohingya families make today. And we ended up on a very small island in Malaysia. It's called Sabah in Borneo. For a lot of the listeners, they might have been to Kuala Lumpur, which is the main city. It's much more modern. There's high-rise building and so on. But in Borneo, it's a much more secluded little island where there are many displaced people from Indigenous Philippines as well that are living in exile. So we were the only Rohingya family there. And I lived in exile for the first 8 years and a half of my life. And then in 2003, the Australian government granted my family and I asylum, and we resettled on Gadigal land in Australia.
Noor, the Gambia brought a case of genocide in the ICJ in 2019. So as Palestinians, we already know that there's strong parallels between your struggle and our struggle. But for the benefit of our listeners and for us as well, could you give us sort of a 101 primer on, what your people are enduring and struggling against?
Yes, a lot of people don't know that the Rohingya genocide has been ongoing for 84 years. So we've suffered from displacement, violence, literally parallel to the Palestinian cause. And my parents, we would grow up and my parents would say, the people of Palestine, these are the people that are similar to us. And it makes me emotional when I think about it, because I think about my family and how even in Malaysia, when we were in exile, we thought about the Palestinians. And I think about what Palestinians have endured in the last 2 years and more than 2 years, and it breaks my heart to think about children that have suffered so immensely.
This is why you're here, Noor, because we are ashamed that there hasn't been enough solidarity and recognition that our struggles are co-entwined and co-joined. And this is a responsibility that we all bear to make these parallels apparent and for us to join hands in this struggle, because we are struggling against the same enemy, and your children are our children and our children are your children.
That means so much to us as a community, and now I'm ruining my makeup that I spent an hour doing.
Perfect.
But to go back to the history, since 1942, Rohingya have faced all sorts of atrocities you can think of that Palestinians have faced, such as the burning of homes and villages, raping of women. In 2017, the military carried out Operation Clearance, and Operation Clearance killed more than 25,000 Rohingya, displaced more than 700,000 Rohingya refugees. More than 25,000 Rohingya women alone were raped. And this violence is still continuing until today. In 1982, the military removed our citizenship and rendered us stateless in our own ancestral homeland. We are the largest stateless community today. And there are about 3 million Rohingya worldwide. And out of the 3 million, only 1% live in freedom, relative freedom, and carry a passport. And I'm part of that 1%, a very small percentage of people. And we lived in Arakan in apartheid, very similar to Palestine. We didn't have access to education. I remember my mother telling me I didn't have access to education. And even if you did, even if a Rohingya family did have a bit of money to pay the military and the government, they would place Rohingya children in the corner of the classroom. These brown children that should be away from the larger Burmese dominance group who we call Bama, and there's another ethnic group in Rakhine called the Rakhine ethnic group. The military also targeted women and raped women, and the reason they raped women is because they knew that we were a stateless population. So being stateless means that you cannot access legal support. After they raped the women, they would torture the bodies of women. They would shove bullets in women's vaginas. They would shove knives, and that was to destroy the womb of women so that we don't carry any more Rohingya children. They want Rohingya to completely be denied of the rights to birth, but also for Rohingya children to stop being birthed. To marry a non-Rohingya person in Rakhine State, you need to seek permission. And this is, again, control to know how many Rohingya are being born.
There's actually a name that's emerged out of the Gaza genocide, repricide, which actually speaks to this, the violence that's deliberately targeted against women as part of the genocide that actually affects the reproductive rights and the ability to sustain life in the future.
And I know that in Palestine they've also targeted IVF fertility clinics, and there's a reason to that. They don't want any more Palestinian children. They want that to end completely.
So it's really horrific listening to you recount these atrocities, many of which these types of violences are still taking place today. And I guess just again for the benefit of listeners who might not be familiar, what is the root cause, or what is the purpose? Is it simply, well, not simply, but is it in a nutshell, a dominant group that is trying to ethnically cleanse another, minority group because they're darker skinned, because the majority of them are Muslim. Like, what is the, when it comes to talking about parallel between, say, Israel, Palestine, what Israel is doing to Palestinians, it's a supremacist, external colonizer, trying to cleanse the population, trying to cleanse the land of its indigenous population, and all the things that go with that sort of supremacist settler colonial state. So I guess for our benefit, what is the the sort of the aim here, the end goal?
There
and who is the perpetrator?
Yeah.
There are multiple prongs to this. The main perpetrator of the Rohingya genocide has always been the Myanmar military, which is an extremist military that uses Buddhism as a tool to kill Rohingya Muslims. They saw Rohingya Muslims as a threat. There's also Islamophobia, anti-Islamic rhetoric, ethno-nationalist. To be a Burma, to be from Myanmar, is to call yourself Burma and to be non-Muslim and to be Buddhist. And there are multiple actors in place. The genocide did not just occur alone. There is an extremist Buddhist monk group called Mabata. They work very closely with the Burmese military. They go around the country and spread propaganda to gain a large domestic support in the country, which they have. They go to Buddhist schools, and from preschool, kindergarten, they teach young children and tell them that Rohingya in Rakhine, in Arakan, own cows and farms because they're practicing to slaughter you. They're practicing to kill you. And this rhetoric spread all over the country. And then people started becoming scared of these aliens, these Rohingya, dark-skinned Rohingya. So there is an element of racism.
And incitement.
Islamophobia. And also there is economic incentives.
Tell us more about that.
Yeah. So there is a pipeline called the Chokbu pipeline that was built by another state that very much contributes to the genocide of the Rohingya, the largest donor of the genocide. Can you guess who?
I was going to say China.
China. In 2017, during the genocide, they invited business and they built this pipeline, this oil pipeline, which destroyed Rohingya households, Rohingya villages, which destroyed our ancestral homeland, beyond that, our ancestral wisdom to grow food and nature. And this pipeline goes across from the bottom all the way up to China. And it's landlocked, So what they do is they transport goods and services from Africa, from other regions, and they transport that across the sea and use our land, dispossess our land, kill our people in order to put money in their pockets. So there are other actors in place. There are also ASEAN states that very much contribute to this genocide. Singapore, India, not an ASEAN state, but India is also a contributor to the genocide. Malaysia, the private sector, Petronas. And Thailand as well. They store a lot of the money for the military. So the military are the main perpetrators, but Aung San Suu Kyi herself, the woman that won the Nobel Peace Prize, denied the Rohingya genocide at the ICJ. My Yasmin Ullah, who I work with, she was an ICJ case advisor. She was in the same room with Aung San Suu Kyi and she listened to her statement. And Aung San Suu Kyi refused to even use the word Rohingya.
It's obscene.
Yes.
She did not even call us by our name.
Complicit with the military.
Exactly.
And it's it's not surprising to me that China is linked to this, is complicit to this in the same way that I know that, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, Israel is linked to this. So all these supremacist colonizer states or imperial states that have interests, it's all interconnected, as we know. It's all part of the same system that is repressing and oppressing Palestinians, that is repressing and oppressing Uyghurs and Rohingya as well. And I guess that's part of, I think, the learning that our communities and our movements need to do, that when you are standing up for Rohingya, there is, and we should do it because it is morally incumbent upon us, but also there is a link, a really critical link.
There's a beautiful quote by African-American professor Robin Kelly talks about solidarity. He says that solidarity isn't collateral to be exchanged, a commodity to be held, or a debt requiring payment. So the idea that solidarity is about recognizing the indivisibility of our struggles for mutual liberation. And I think what you've pointed to here is that even if you don't morally understand the connections, the political economy of what is happening to support this genocide is intimately connected to the political economy that supports the genocide in Gaza. And that's why we have to work together rather than it being a transactional relationship. We are all equally vested in this because the same global economic forces that prop up these genocidal projects are impacting us all.
And in the 1960s was the first military coup. And do you know which state funded the first military coup?
I'm going to say Israel.
Yep. Israel jumped on and said, here are weapons. Here are materials to kill Rohingya. So it's very much interrelated, and all our causes.
I think Myanmar was the first East Asian state to recognize the state of Israel.
Yes, that's correct. That's absolutely correct.
Just building on that, I mean, you're one of the most visible and recognizable Rohingya women activists of your generation, Noor. I want to ask you, how has gender shaped your advocacy, both in terms of the challenges that you have faced to this moment, but also the perspectives that you might bring to the movement?
That's a really good question. I can speak about Rohingya women all day, all night.
And we can listen to you speaking about them all day, all night.
But when I resettled to Australia, that was on Gadigal land, so-called Australia. We felt a sense of freedom that we haven't felt before. Life in Malaysia was very scary. I spent a very long time as a child having no access to education, hiding in the jungles of Borneo, afraid of being detained by the police. And when we came, we were actually able to breathe, smell the air as a family, live together as a family. And beyond that, speak our Rohingya language. In Malaysia, we were so scared to even say that we were Rohingya. We would say anything but Rohingya. The word was just, we were a little bit allergic to it.
Scared and a lot of shame around it as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And I felt that sense of freedom, but my freedom was not complete. I still didn't feel that complete freedom. And I realized that our people are still struggling. More than 90% of Rohingya are outside of our ancestral homeland. That's a huge number. And that underscores the severity of our crisis. And a lot of haters from Indonesia might say, why don't you go fight for your land? And it's so easy to say when you haven't been in the position where the military has put a gun to the top of your head or raped your mother and killed your father in front of you. And we can get a bit more into that. But going back to your question of being a woman activist, I started doing local work for the community, doing outreach, running workshops with the local Rohingya women, talking about who we are, our culture, being comfortable. And then I realised it was bigger than that because I saw the 2017 violence, there was 2012 violence, 2011 violence, and I watched the news, and my mum would call my cousins, and my cousins would say, we're hiding in the jungles right now and it might be our last words. And I was so lost, and I said, this can't be it. Like, we don't have a large amount of public support. We don't have a mass movement. A lot of the work is led by Rohingya genocide survivors like myself. And the work was so lonely when I started. When I started a very long time ago, maybe like 12, 13 years ago as a young person.
You're still young.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
You're incredible. What is the population in Australia?
In Australia,
Yeah.
we don't have an exact, but in Sydney in particular, we have a diaspora which is about 6,000 to 7,000. Okay. But that census was from a few years ago. I would say it's not updated. But the largest diaspora is in Milwaukee, in the US. Yeah. And I was like, there's not enough women doing work for the community. Why am I the only one? There's a lot of the uncles, and you guys probably understand this.
The Ammo energy, yes,
Well,
we do.
No. The women do the work.
Yeah.
The question is who's getting the credit for it.
Credit.
Exactly,
I'm sure the women are doing the work.
Yeah. The uncles would be like, what are you doing? Like, why are you speaking up? Like, you should be at home. You should be studying. You should be getting ready to get married and get a husband and have children. And I knew I didn't want any of that. And then I started doing international advocacy. I started going to the UN. I started going to ASEAN and visiting the Rohingya refugee camps. And I was very alone in that process. And I hated the loneliness. And then one day, I opened my Facebook page and I saw this incredible Rohingya woman with a Canadian accent. Just go, "Hi, I'm Yasmin." Oh, sorry, she's probably watching this and she's going to kill me. And I was thinking, who in the world is this lady? And I need to be friends with her. And I messaged her on Facebook, like, "Hi, I just saw you. Like, you're amazing. I'm a Rohingya activist as well in Sydney." And she left me on red. And I'll never forgive her for this.
The start of every beautiful friendship.
Exactly.
DM left on red.
Yeah. And then eventually we started talking on WhatsApp. I think it's always WhatsApp.
Yeah.
And then we started looking at each other's work and exchanging contact. And then she found a pool of funding, like a very small amount of money for us to go to the Rohingya refugee camp in Indonesia. And we saw each other in Bangkok before that. We said, let's do something together. Let's come up with something where Rohingya women can do work for the community, where we can train them, take them to our people. So she took me, she took another Rohingya activist that's quite well known, and then another 2 young Rohingya activists that are very new to this work. And they were so scared. They're from the US. Well, they've lived. The similarities that we all have is that we've all faced violence and persecution, and we've all fled Myanmar. But we've all ended up in different parts of the world. So we took them to the camp. These 2 young girls were nervous. What are men going to say? They're going to say we shouldn't be doing this. So there's a lot of flack that we receive from in and out of the community.
Yeah, that
The patriarchal nature, and you both probably understand
My
this.
favorite term, the double bind.
Yeah.
We cut that binds a while ago.
Oh, yeah, both literally, I want you to meet my entire team. So inspirational. So we went to the camp in Indonesia. This was in 2023, if I'm correct. My memory is so bad. And then they were so inspired. They said, we want to keep doing the work. And I'll never forget one of my team members. She said, "I'm really bad at public speaking." And after I've met our community, after I've seen them, I'll do it. She's like, "I'll do anything for them." Because people forget, after we've resettled to another country, what the conditions are like, how dire it is. So we're a team of 12 Rohingya women now. We're an international human rights organisation spanning from all over the world, and I'm the only one based in Australia.
Nor, do you feel that like international platforms in the media treat Rohingya activists who are women differently from men? How does it affect the stories that get told and the way that you sort of posture internationally as a woman, knowing about that patriarchy and knowing about that double bind?
We actually were not a patriarchal society in Arakan State. Historically, we were matriarchal. Women played large roles in society. Men would come to these Rohingya women that have a lot of wisdom for life advice, career advice, love advice, whatever it is. But now it's completely shifted. The men are speaking for the women. The men are telling women to sit inside the camp, to sit at home and do nothing. I get told, why am I not head covered? Why do you not wear hijab? They're more concerned about the hijab on my head than the genocide killing our people. And this I receive nearly every single day. So it's really shifted. But the reason why Rohingya Maìyafuìnor collaborative network exists is to show Rohingya women that we can choose. We have a choice. Whether it be wearing a hijab or not wearing a hijab, there is a choice. And that this patriarchal nature is not normal. And to answer your question, if you Google Rohingya organisation Sydney and you look at the first organisation, you click on images, I promise you I will give you $50 if you could find a photo of a woman. So it's very much embedded, and we are here to change that. And we are here to tell people that we are done being quiet, that we are stepping up, and that Rohingya women are able to do the work. We are more than capable. Beyond the lived experience, we all have different expertise. My team, for example, we have engineers, lawyers, doctors. Not that you have to be any of those things to work for your community, but Rohingya women are not as platformed as Rohingya men.
It just goes to show how that well, you said that there was a shift, and that is obviously enabled by global, violent systems of patriarchy. So it's not that it's existing in a vacuum. Whether they're enabled by tech and international companies, or whether they're enabled by states that are also quite patriarchal and repressive in various ways, manifested differently, against women. I feel like we're just experiencing that just in a different way.
Yeah, that's so true. So you mentioned that with the episode of Dr. Samash Jibbert, who's a psychologist from Palestine, and we were talking about the way that Israel weaponizes patriarchy and sexism to try to police Palestinian women activists and their activism. So it uses and leverages those kinds of assumptions and demands on women's participation in society to say it's shameful for you to be participating, you need to go back home.
Even though Palestinian women have been at the forefront, I think that's the exact threat. You are a threat to them, and that is why they're going to weaponize that, exploit it, enable it, be complicit in it, perhaps. A different, perhaps, angle of the same question. You're a woman activist, but you're also quite a young woman activist, as we've said. And I can only imagine balancing the weight of the trauma that has come, with everything that you do, and the responsibility of also representing your own, your community on a global stage, in particular when there's so much erasure, denial, invisibilization.
It's hard. I'm going to be honest. It's very hard to balance it. I said I'm part of that 1% of 3 million. That's a very small number of people that live in freedom. That means I can travel, I can move around, I can attend meetings, I can visit my community and bring their voices back. And yeah, as a survivor, I feel an immense responsibility, truly. And I'd hope if it was the other way around, if I had my siblings that were here, when any other places where they lived in relative safety, and little Noor Azizah was still stuck in Borneo, living in complete shit shows, mind my language, I would hope they'd be doing anything they can to get me out of that place. So whenever I do the work, I think about how privileged I am. But we can talk about privilege, but we also need to look after ourselves, because I can't look after my community without looking after myself. So what gives me motivation is that I'm not alone. I have my team. Doing the work by yourself was the worst. I hated it until I found these women that has shown me immense courage, shown me the love that they have for our people. There is a strong love that we all feel for our people. And if we don't do it, nobody will, unfortunately. And that's just the reality.
That's
Again.
really beautiful, because you're not just bound by that trauma, which is a reality, but there's so much more that we share and that we have to work towards.
Absolutely. I mean, me and the girls, we get up to no good.
Me and
like,
the girls. I love that. Yeah.
We laugh and we make Rohingya jokes, and we start speaking our language, because that's another thing. We were so ashamed of speaking our language. So yeah, we keep going, and we keep it balanced by being happy as well. And I think being happy is part of the resistance. Me and my military wants us to be miserable.
Yeah.
They want us to not put cute makeup on.
And to have perfect winged liner, as we've discovered.
Oh, yes, okay. That's too nice. My head's going to break your roof. Is that covered by insurance?
Yes. No.
Noor, the genocide committed against your people has been sustained not just through violence, but as with most genocides, through words, through the discourse and propaganda, the dehumanization of your people's killing, their bodies, the brutalization. How do you see the weaponization of language, allowing global powers to look away or to, are they looking away? They're deeply complicit. But how do you see the weaponization of language justifying this genocide and the ongoing status quo of it?
So it started in Myanmar. Now it's spreading across Southeast Asia, where many Rohingya are displaced in. And now we've normalized it globally, the entire world. Ummah, the non-Ummah. We've labelled it as the forgotten genocide. That was deliberate, and people just like, okay, forgotten genocide, next. So if we talk about Myanmar, the dehumanisation started since 1942, spreading propaganda saying that we're dark-skinned refugees, we are Bengalis, we are not indigenous people, Rohingya does not exist. And this was all over the country, through radio, face-to-face, magazines, newspapers. Ethnic Rakhine group students went on the streets and protested they wanted Rohingya outside of our homeland, despite us being indigenous, being the first people there. We've been there since sunrise. And they gained a big domestic support from the country until today. There are still people in Myanmar that believe the genocide of the Rohingya is not true, and that, or some people might think the genocide of the Rohingya is okay. Some people,
So many parallels.
It's
yeah,
unbelievable.
Of course.
Like, but obviously, like the racism and genocide playbook.
Yeah.
It's the same.
All the perpetrators learned from
each other. Yeah,
it's either denial or we did it, but we were justified in doing so.
Yeah, like, okay, it's okay. They're not from here.
Yeah, the myth making, the scaremongering,
exactly.
The narratives around it. Yeah.
But the military is not going to spare us, right? Because in Southeast Asia, there's paid hate speech. We saw that during the elections in Indonesia in the last few years. There was a video UNHCR posted of me. I was saying we want a safe repatriation back home. We want to go home. We don't want to live in exile in Indonesia and Malaysia. We want safety. We want a homeland. And there was more than 5,500 hate comments on it, mostly bots.
Wow. Yes, I mean, another parallel because Israel, obviously the state of Israel pays Zionist trolls around the world to comment and inflict that kind of hate speech on Palestinians and Palestine-adjacent people as well. And I guess, we've talked about this before, hate speech has played a major role in justifying the genocide against the Rohingya spreading across now the region. You're someone who does work heavily online and relies on these platforms. What risks do you personally encounter? What threats do you encounter in these digital spaces? And then also, what kinds of responsibilities do you think tech platforms have to prevent these sorts of this sort of incitement? They've failed Rohingya communities so far, but do you see that there's a role for them to play?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And these paid bots are coordinated, but they also manifest into actual violence against Rohingya.
Yes.
In Indonesia, 2 million Indonesians went to protest for Gaza. On the same day, a Rohingya boat arrived in Aceh and an anti-Rohingya movement pushed the boat away. On the same day, 2 million Indonesians protested. And they pushed the boat away. By the way, these are Muslims against Muslims, yeah? The common religion doesn't work anymore. Yeah. They want Rohingya out. They'll blame Rohingya for all the economic issues. They've even labelled us as Zionist. This is a new label that we want to be in Indonesia because we want to steal their land. Wow. And this is a rhetoric we've seen in the last 3 years. And the boat was pushed. And on the boat, there was a Rohingya mum. She came back, she was disembarked, and BBC interviewed her. And there was a young Rohingya mum, she was about 25. She had 2 children on the boat. And one of her child, a 3-year-old, died from starvation because they had no food. And you know how she buried her child? She threw her child in the ocean. And she came back with only 1 child instead of 2. I don't think any mother should ever go through that. But we also need to speak about this selective solidarity. Yes. And people say lack of knowledge, lack of information. I truly don't believe that. Yeah. You can go on Google right now and type in Rohingya genocide.
Information overload.
Yeah.
So just to go back to the role that these tech giants have in play, to sort of facilitate platforms and kind of curb the hate speech that we're seeing. I mean, this is a very real and live issue, and there have been examples of cases, legal cases, I think. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, of course. There was a legal case against Facebook because UN investigators stated that Facebook played a determining role in the genocide and spreading the hate speech. The military used it to spread dehumanizing propaganda, calling Rohingya Bengali terrorists, but not just the military. Aung San Suu Kyi's office posted on Facebook saying Rohingya women are lying about rape. So they posted a sticker that said fake rape. And then thousands and thousands of people from Myanmar commented and said, yes, Rohingya are lying. Then why would Rohingya women lie about rape? What do they gain from that? So there was no moderation. Meta ignored all the warnings for years. But the case, if I'm correct, is still ongoing. But we need to invest in proper moderation on Facebook. And we also need to protect vulnerable communities. And we need accountability as well for Facebook. But yeah, but now we're seeing it on all platforms, all across Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. My team and I have collected more than 6,000 screenshots of hate speech over the last few years.
I mean, these tech giants, this is an issue from surveillance to repression to incitement that is happening against, as you say, vulnerable communities, Rohingya, Palestinian, we know have been censored and repressed online as well via Meta. And it's really perhaps empowering to see that there are avenues of accountability, slow as they might be, or we're still obviously waiting to see the legal case against Facebook for that. But it is, at least it's one channel. Are there any other avenues that we can take, or any actions we can take to hold them accountable for this?
Facebook in particular?
All of them. I mean, all these tech. I mean,
okay, we've been doing that.
And that's why I'm really interested, because it's something that we can also replicate across, and something Palestinians are looking at also.
Yeah. So we've done a few things to combat the hate speech, misinformation, disinformation against the bots and real people. Just to tell you a story before I get into what we do in the region to tell Malaysians and Indonesians that we're not there to steal their land. I was in Malaysia this year, and I went inside a taxi, and it was like a Malaysian uncle, and I had to do a 3-hour drive with him because I had to get to another town. And I saw he had Free Palestine all over his car, flags, everything. And I said, oh, that's great. You're supporting our siblings in Palestine. What do you think of Rohingya people? And his face went completely sour. It dropped, and he said, I hate the Rohingya. Wow. They should not be here. They should not come. And I said, why do you hate them so much? I didn't tell him I was Rohingya the whole ride. And he said, I hate the Rohingya because if they commit crimes in Malaysia, we can't find them. They don't have documentation. And I said, do you know they were made stateless? So I was giving him a bit of a history background. I said, do you know they were made stateless? That's why they don't have documentation. He said, easy for you to say because you live in a Western country. So if you were in my position, you would hate them too. And I said, okay, no worries. And I was literally afraid for my life throughout the 3-hour drive. So I didn't say anything, but I knew he hated the Rohingya, but he was definitely pro-Palestine. And this is normal now. I've seen it everywhere, online, offline. It's very normal. And when I got to the end of the 3 hours, I gave him a tip, and I said, this is an extra tip for you, and I want you to pray for the Rohingya. And then he drove away. Wow. Yeah. But to answer your question, what we do is we go back to Southeast Asia as a team because a lot of us were displaced there. Yasmin was displaced in Thailand for 16 years, doing the same thing as me, hiding in different jungles, moving around, living in refugee camps. She speaks fluent Thai. I speak Malay. We speak the languages of ASEAN. We hold cultural events and cultural nights with local people. And, we're not threatening. We're a group of 12 beautiful Rohingya women, I would say. And we wear our cultural clothing. We use our documentary. We cook Rohingya food. We show our generosity, and we show people, and we counter this hate that people have fallen for. It's been successful. People come to us and they say, I actually didn't know that this was your culture. And beyond that, we also started this reconciliation truth-telling process in the border of Myanmar and Thailand. We've gone to the border where there are many Bama people, Kachin, Karen, Pa, or other indigenous ethnic group from Myanmar that are in exile. And we've done the cultural nights. And for a lot of them, it was their first time meeting Rohingya people. They would come to us by the end and cry and apologize and say, we are ashamed that we didn't speak up for the Rohingya, because the military coup started in 2021. The Rohingya genocide started in 1942. And the military is targeting the entire country.
Yeah, the same military that represses you is repressing them in different ways and just using you as a deflection. I mean, it's the same in Indonesia. These governments are doing the same thing to their own communities. It's a lot easier, a lot easier to scapegoat and say this is the Rohingya issue.
It's the easiest way. And people using the Rohingya genocide to put money and votes in their pockets.
That's right.
But holding specific people accountable, if you're going to post a hateful comment on Facebook with a beautiful picture of you, and that says Free Palestine as well, with a flag in it, and say Rohingya don't deserve to live. You guys are too black. Your people are disgusting. Of course, we're going to make a meme out of it. Of course, we're going to make a reel out of it.
Yeah.
So we've done that, and
memed.
And we showcase that these are real people. We're going to hold you accountable.
Yeah.
It really exposes something that we don't speak enough about, which is the intra-racism within the global Muslim community. And that accounts for this, the demonization of the Rohingya people, the complete erasure of Sudan, and so many other examples. I remember I was recently in Egypt, and the story that you recounted now about the taxi, oh my God, I had such a similar experience in a taxi in a suburb called Maìyafuìnor, where there's a large population of Sudanese refugees. And this taxi driver also had Palestinian stickers and flags. And then he started on this rant about the Sudanese taking over. And just the juxtaposition, like viscerally, of seeing those stickers and that racist rant. And I just, again, and you push back, you speak back, but you realize the weight of propaganda, state propaganda and media propaganda, and how much we're up against in really exposing and fighting back that intra-racism that's so deeply embedded and disseminated.
Yeah. How would you say then that such selective, performative solidarity, what does that performative solidarity reveal about our movements?
Let me read a couple of hate speeches that I collected. Okay, one says, "The difference between you and the Palestinian people, they are civilized and you are not. Nobody invited you here, and you talk so much about our country. Know yourself. Indonesian people have accepted you, and now you have become a devil."
Wow, we don't want them in our movement. We don't want
I always say that. I started replying to them because we tagged in some posts, and usually I ignore all trolls. That is my rule, because otherwise you'd be there all day. But I was just, really pushed to my limits with some of the violence that you get online, and I was just like, no.
No, thank you. I've seen your comments. It's hilarious. It makes us laugh.
And the Zionist language that this supposedly pro-Palestinian supporter is using. Exactly.
We repeat and perpetuate.
And then just one more. This one is like an Indonesian man. Malaysian man, sorry. I don't mind the Rohingya staying in Malaysia if they don't cause any trouble. The thing is, I work in the middle of KL and I see them forcing to buy their tissue or whatever, and they always make a mess. They even scam people. The reason we accept Palestine refugees is because they behave.
Wow.
Yeah, so apparently we're not well behaved, and that we are these problematic groups. So they're going to pick and choose which refugees deserve to live. Yeah. And it becomes transactional. Last week, an Indonesian man that went on the global Sumud flotilla, he messaged me. He wasn't even a message, it was a comment. He said, "Why are you posting about these bad things about Indonesia when I went to the camp and I fed your people and I gave them food, and this is how you repay us?" So it's become transactional. It's a buy one, get one free situation. We went and helped your people in the camp, so you should behave. You shouldn't hold our governments accountable.
Wow, there's the cognitive dissonance matched with the racism, matched with the scapegoating of people's personal economic traumas onto displaced people. It's just mind-blowing.
I think we've talked about this a little bit as well in our previous conversations, how we can't and the responsibility is on us to not allow people in our movement, supporters, to use, and particularly governments, I would say as well, to use Palestine to wash, launder their reputation. And so I think the question to you then is, how is this performative sort of, again, selective solidarity, like what does that reveal about our movements? And what is it actually that we need to do? What needs to change for this solidarity to stop being conditional, to stop being transactional, to stop being based on, gratitude, you should be grateful, like we're doing you the favor. How do we move from that to something that is genuine and consistent for Rohingya and beyond?
Yeah. I mean, we need to stand for all communities facing oppression. And that's what we try and do at Rohingya Maìyafuìnor Collaborative Network. We try and talk about the genocide happening in Sudan. People are saying that they're tired, they're exhausted by the multiple genocides happening across the world. But we cannot be tired when it comes to black bodies, especially black bodies, because they face racism in the Western world, but they face extreme racism also in the Muslim world. So we need to stand up for all, but we cannot say we're tired for Sudan. We cannot say we're tired for West Papua. That's right. And we cannot deny ethnic cleansing happening. There's ethnic cleansing happening in West Papua. Reports say that. I mean, we don't need reports. We know that.
Yes.
Rohingya Palestinians, we don't need reports. We don't need...
one more report to confirm.
Exactly. Someone to say genocide happening. It's confirmed. We know that. We know it's happening.
There's nothing more Western than a report that goes into a cupboard and nothing happens.
Doing nothing.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's back to Indonesia. We've been posting about West Papua because our West Papuan siblings came to us and said, we're really worried about our lives. Can you speak up for us? And we said, of course, this is why we exist. So we started posting things about West Papua and people are coming at us. They already hate the Rohingya and then they're like, why are you saying that our government is committing ethnic cleansing in West Papua? Actually, in West Papua, they're Zionists. That's why they deserve to get killed. So it's a big oxymoron, hey? And it's a big battle to fight. So it's not easy, but true solidarity is universal. And we need to stand up for all oppressed, whether it be in Palestine, whether it be in Congo, in Sudan, West Papua, Indigenous Australia. It's important that we speak for everyone and we give the same amount of energy. It's hard. Like, I hold myself accountable. I speak about Rohingya all the time. But I make sure that I bring up the Uyghurs that are also facing genocide. And that's another podcast that we can do about the denial of the Uyghur.
Can I quickly ask before we
move
on, Rhonda?
Go ahead.
We'll ask a nice uplifting question. Can I quickly ask, in the sort of the broader Palestinian struggle or movement, we've got the BDS, the boycott, divestment, sanctions as like our call to action. Right now we're seeing in Sudan various calls to action as well happening around boycotting and also ending, arms trade and so on. What would the call to action be for us to kind of put out there to support Rohingya?
Hold the Myanmar military accountable. I think it's also important for everybody to know in the last year and a half, the UN has called that what's happening is the final wave of genocide. And what's happening is there's fighting amongst the Rakhine army, which is called Arakan army, with the military. The Arakan army is led by Rakhine ethnic group. They have more than 90% control over Rakhine state. Most of the recent genocidal violence were conducted by the Arakan army. So now the shape has changed, but the conditions are the same and the intent is the same. It's to wipe Rohingya away. They're also doing business with China. So we also need to hold the Rakhine Arakan army accountable beyond the Myanmar military.
Is that, do we do that through international, legal accountability mechanisms? Do we also target ASEAN? Do we, are there any specific calls that you want to share with us that we can also amplify?
I think the Palestinian movement has really inspired me, but what it showed me is that people are able to come together and speak about this genocide and speak about this vulnerable population that we all need to fight for. So doing exactly what they're doing for Palestine, calling out the military by protesting. Go and protest in front of the Myanmar embassy in Canberra. Go and bring people together. I'm one person. People, you know what I mean? Like, I'm putting my body in different parts of the world, but I need everybody to get on board. We can boycott. We can show people and tell people that we exist. Because the first thing people need to know is that we exist. A lot of people do not even know who the Rohingya are. I did a talk in Bangkok like a week ago in front of like a big audience that work in human rights. And one guy came up to me and he said, I've been in human rights for 20 years and today was the first time I've ever heard about the Rohingya.
Wow.
So there is...
Part of the problem.
That's an
Exactly.
indictment on the
on
human
the
rights.
human rights
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we need to tell people that there is a genocide happening in the backyard of Gadigal land. If your neighbour's house was set on fire, you're not just going to stand there. You're going to do something. But what are you going to do? So I think that question goes back to everybody's individual capacity and networks. You know, I might be able to know people in ASEAN. You might be able to know people in the Palestinian movement. So, yeah, move and create and make noise.
And one more thing, support the Rohingya Maìyafuìnor collaborative network, your organization.
Yes, please do. The biggest thing you can do right now, the easiest thing is follow us on our Instagram, which is Rohingya Women Collaborative. And a lot of people say, we don't hear about Rohingya, we don't see it in the news, which is true. Journalists are not allowed to enter Rakhine State. They've been completely barred, but it doesn't mean we turn away. I'm still receiving videos.
We're very familiar with
Yes,
that.
yeah.
You know, the Gaza would be
exactly.
It falls on us as like civil society to
Exactly.
do the work journalists.
Just
aren't
because we
allowed to.
can't see it on the news, it doesn't mean we just go blind and say, okay, next.
Yeah.
What do we do? So yeah, please follow us, and we try and post as much news as possible and hold people accountable if you want to see some trolls.
When you imagine a future, Noor, for Rohingya youth in particular, so not just a safe one but a dignified one, what does it look like to you?
When I came to Australia, on so-called Australia, I was still embarrassed to call myself Rohingya. I would tell people I was Malaysian, and I'm full-blooded Rohingya, by the way. Both my parents are Rohingya. And I would go to school and be like, I'm Malay, yeah. Like, I speak Malay. Like, saya orang Melayu, saya dari Malaysia. And then I'm like, why am I doing this? And there was a huge sense of shame of telling people that I was Rohingya. Then I started learning about who we are as a people through books, YouTube. My parents, I'd ask them stories about Arakan. My mum would tell me about her grandmother and all sorts of things. And I realized I am not Malaysian. And I'm Rohingya. So I started calling myself Rohingya, and I'm very proud to call myself Rohingya till today. But unfortunately, a lot of Rohingya youth are still embarrassed till today. There are still Rohingya children calling themselves Malay, Indonesian, Pakistani, India, Saudi Arabian, wherever they grew up in exile. But we're changing that. And one team member that joined us last year, her dad is Bama ethnic group. Well, they're not an ethnic group. They're like the dominant, and her mum's Rohingya. And she said, my whole life I called myself Bama, and it was until I joined this network I told people I was Rohingya, and I'll never forget that. And I said, this is what we're doing. We're changing the narrative. We're making our youth be proud of who they are, our culture, our people, and not fall for the hate, because Rohingya are also falling for the hate. It becomes internalized hate, internalized racism. So yeah, what I imagine is for Rohingya youth to go back home to our ancestral homeland, to rebuild what's been taken away from us, to see the rivers our grandparents used to play in, to see the trees, and to be one again.
That's beautiful.
You can take them.
Well, your words are actually words that other people can quote, but we're going to ask you what's a quote or a poem or piece of writing that has inspired and anchored you lately?
Yeah. There's a poem called Crashes by Yasmin Ullah. It's beautiful. She wrote about the Rohingya sea journey, and I would recommend everybody to go and look it up. It's really touching because just a few days ago there was a boat that arrived into near Malaysia, and there was about 300 Rohingya, and about 280 people died from drowning, and this is a very common sea journey Rohingya make until today.
That's really devastating. Sorry. What's something that you are no longer apologizing for?
For being a Rohingya woman,
Yes.
for being a Muslim brown woman. So yeah, I'll no longer apologize for being all of the above, three of above. That makes sense.
And if you could send our listeners a decolonial feminist care package, what would you put in it?
Aside from these bands,
Aside
obviously,
these
which
amazing
say I
bands.
stand with Rohingya.
We're also launching
heart.
T-shirts soon, so keep an eye out.
Amazing.
We all love a good tea.
We're
Good
copying.
merch
We're
drop.
copying the Palestinians.
No,
guys.
it's not a copy. We're sharing.
Yes.
Aw. Friends, honestly, friends that give an unconditional love, like you both. And I mean, you both approached me on social media and said, "Hey, we've seen your work and we want to get you on this podcast." This podcast might look small to some people, but it's actually quite huge. For us, it's sharing our story to the wider Islamic network in Australia and non-Islamic network as well. And it's telling people that we need to do more. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. That's in my care package.
That's in your
Friends that give unconditional love.
and forcibly forcing people to listen to this podcast.
Yes,
obviously.
you must listen.
Yeah.
Gosh, I feel emotional. It's yeah, we need to be here for each other, and just listening to you, especially talking about how youth disappear themselves when the forces, you know, the genocidal forces, their aim is to disappear you. It resonates. I think, oh my God, I want to extend this out, but Sarah's, you know, got Lebanese background. I'm sure that resonated so much with the way Palestinians in Lebanon and refugee camps survived and the defense mechanisms they used. Sorry, I'm just started a new podcast.
It really did. It really did. I was thinking about that as you were speaking, how, again, the parallels and the similarities of the self-erasure and the shame and the rebranding yourself just so you could live, and then having to grow up with that, and then sort of a similar, exactly. But then coming to Australia, so-called Australia, having a similar kind of awakening, a political awakening, realizing that I shouldn't hide that part, and that is, there's nothing shameful about that. That's what they want. There's nothing shameful about it, and I need to own it, and I have privilege, and I need to be able to speak out and do the things that other Palestinians in other places who aren't safe and who are impacted directly by that kind of violence, you know, aren't able to do. So yeah, I'm not making Zionists' job easy for them, and neither are you going to do the same. You're not going to make the colonizers and the perpetrators their jobs easier. Keep giving them trouble is what I would say.
We will, and we will continue to do so. But again, thank you so much.
Together.
Oh, thank
Together.
you. Thank
Our freedom
you for
is only
sharing.
complete when all of us are free.
Absolutely.
Thank
Our
you so
enemy is
much.
united, so we need to be.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us today on 2 Pals and a Pod.
Thank you
Noor
for
Azizah.
having me. I look forward to it.
Thank you.